Are we live?
We are live. Just checking all the streams are all activating.
I'm definitely activated.
We're definitely live.
Listen to that.
Yeah.
Fresh crack.
Fresh bottle.
Well, we can talk about that in a minute.
I don't think so. No, I'm just messing with you. Evening, lads, says James Button. Good to see you, James. Rob Akers. Stream powers activate. Darren Howard, good to see you. We're all just kicking off now live again with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. My special guest tonight is a regular repeat offender on the channel with me, Matt Wooler from Dram Nation. And there, are you just checking your lighting settings? You're all good? You're all good?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Cool.
Went to sleep.
Gary, good to see you. Dan Woolley, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Look, you know what? We're just going to go live tonight. This is probably the most unplanned live session we've ever executed. This is my third.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah, 10 minutes. There you go. Well, if that. It was actually, this is the third video I've had to do today. Not had to, but, you know, like the third video I wanted to do today, which was the first two were pre-records. So if you feel so inclined to watch at 5:30 a.m. this Saturday morning on the UK time, you can catch my mug talking about pink rum cocktails of all things. So why not? It was a bit of fun.
Right.
You throw a bit of grenadine into anything and it turns pink. So here we go. Now I've got a cup of tea here because I liked a heavily steeped black tea, and I've also
this is what this tea business is.
Tea, drink tea.
Whiskey,
No.
whiskey.
You know what? I'm going to get this. I'm going to just mention this right at the onset as well, whilst we've just kicked off. Hi, Gary and Dan. Hi, James and Dan. Pass. Okay. Rob, look, I'm going to announce this at the beginning and I'll announce it at the end. I have here in my office a bottle of 64.97, a sunny day in late summer. Now, this was a Partner Bar exclusive. I'll hold that up for the label there. If you've seen our post on Facebook, you know what's going on. If you've seen it on Twitter, you know what's going on. This is a special bottling from Distillery 64 that was bottled exclusively for the partner bars around the world. We gave bottles of this to every partner bar in Australia as well. However, at the time, I think we had 10 partner bars, and I think I had 11 bottles going around. So I forgot about that last bottle, and it sat in the warehouse up until last week. Now I've got it, and I'm going to give this away to a member. I'm giving it away.
Oh.
Now, it can be a member. It'll be a member who wins it. There's two ways of winning this. If you're not a member of the society, join the society. Simple as that. Every new member who joins between now and the end of July, the 31st of July,
Wins a bottle. Every new member wins a bottle. Is that what
goes
you're
to
saying?
the draw to win the bottle. And then if you're already a member and you refer a member, you also go in the draw.
Double entries.
And it's a lovely piece of society history, actually, because you'll be the only member with this bottle, because it was only for partner bars. There was no actual member sales of this bottle at all. So that'd be kind of cool that you get the chance at one of those. So there you go. All you have to do is refer a member or join the society. One or the other. You pick. Matt Wooler, how you been?
Yeah, good. Very good.
Yeah. What's going on
Busy
tonight?
week for me.
Yeah.
Going on tonight? Well, I just finished cooking a silver side. So that is actually ready to go.
Yeah, okay.
Cook, lots of spices. I'm getting the aromas coming through at the moment. I've got an oven bake going on. So by the time we finish here, it's going to be just right. So that's what's been going on right now.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Gary says, send it to me. Gary, if you refer a friend, you know what? You'll be instantly in the draw. It's simple as that. Rob Baker says, nice. There you go. Good stuff, mate. So, yeah, I mean, it's a white collar. What do they call that? They call that a first world problem, isn't it, though? Like a 4-day work week?
Yeah.
I mean, you sort of work 5 days, but like, you know what I mean? Like, so did I. But when you have a public holiday that starts your week, you feel like you've got to cram Monday to Friday and Tuesday to Friday.
Yeah, I didn't have a public holiday. With the work I do with the uni and the prep I have for the work that I have to do, especially engagement with students online and all that sort of stuff, Monday was just full on from 8:30 in the morning right till 5 o'clock, just prepping for the week. So, but now it's like today, 12:30, I finished, but I've actually been sitting at the computer since then doing work,
Yeah.
prepping, and I'm trying to prep enough by tomorrow that I can actually get the weekend off. So I don't know, but I would not want to go back to work for people. That's for sure. It's sort of like, working for myself and being able to self-manage.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though I think you work longer, you work more happy.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, it's the curse and the celebration of it all, really, in some ways, because as you know, unless I'm traveling, I'm working from this office here, and it means that I'm often working ridiculous hours because it's just you're here. You're like, okay, I may as well. So if you're working from home already, you're sort of like, for me, apart from the travel, nothing has really changed. Well, we're not doing events. That's a massive bummer. But
Yep.
But anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about COVID because the good news is it's actually everything's starting to relax, just bit by bit, which is great to see. Queensland's pretty much on no restriction now, and I
don't know whether it's really falls into that bit by bit. It's like suddenly it's just been dumped out there, and for me, I'm still quite reserved about doing stuff. Yeah, I've had a few inquiries about doing events and things, and I'm said, look, I'll do some small stuff in people's houses and manage that.
Yeah.
But no, nothing big. I would like to still be partnering up with some bars and maybe even doing some small sort of like personal event tastings in bars.
Yep.
But nothing large scale at the moment. I just don't know. Honestly, I don't know how those risks go involved in regards to if somehow it can be traced that you might be responsible for the one that spread a virus into 24 other people in a room. Like, I don't know whether anyone is really thinking about the liabilities at the moment. I mean, I know a lot of businesses are covered by liability, but
This is all
it's
new.
good to see things are happening.
Yeah, things are starting to happen. We've never been through this before in our lifetime, or any really, in recent history. No one alive right now has ever been through this before. Let's put it that way. So it's kind of a weird occurrence in history, I think. But anyway, what we want to talk about tonight, and this is not a big live stream tonight, it's just a chance for us to catch up and actually discuss some things which we find interesting. And Willa and I talked about this weeks ago, and by weeks ago, I mean about 11 minutes before we went live. How about we talk about a little bit about New Make and how and what, because the other reason I wanted to bring this up really is because I've been in this sort of like position lately. I've already lost it. Anyway, I've been in this position lately where I've had the opportunity to taste a bunch of New Make samples. I thought I put another sample on my desk.
What's that New Make in your hand there? Which one is that?
Well, this is a New Make from an American distillery.
It wouldn't happen to be the same one that I have in my hand right now.
Very well could be. I might have to go and find.
Whoa.
You know what? There it is. I got a different one from a different distillery. Okay. So this one is from a Australian distillery, actually. So I don't even have a Scottish New Make on the table at the moment. Although acquiring Scottish New Make can be quite difficult. And it's, distilleries don't sell New Make generally in Scotland. They use every last drop they produce to go into casks. So, I've been lucky enough to taste Ardbeg New Make, Elvina New Make, a whole bunch of different distillery New Make, but taste and even Arran New Make. But you don't. It's not like it's easily accessible. It's not like you can walk into a bottle shop and buy New Make, generally speaking.
No, and even when they talk about like White Dog and things along those lines in the US, and what we see here sometimes, it still ends up being watered down 43%, 40% New Make spirit. So we get an essence of it, but it's not quite the same thing as the New Make that comes off the still, and it sure as hell isn't having the experience of warm New Make literally coming off the still. That's a whole different experience, and that's got some amazing flavors that you just get. It's like instant and then it's gone type thing. As it starts to cool down, you never get that back.
Oh yeah. It's actually funny that the two that spring to mind for me on that one was I remember when I toured Glenmurray Distillery in 2018, and I was with Graham and Faye Cool, and Graham just opened the spirit safe and said the lock on the front's really just for the show and tell, but he opens the spirit safe lid, and the middle run is coming off right now of the cut, he said, you guys taste it. And I said, I don't have a glass. He goes, no. Grab some in your hands, put your hands in and just grab some new make. Like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I did it. And I grabbed this new make and tasted new make straight out of my palm, straight out of my cupped hands. And it was like you said, it was warm. It was fresh, warm new make straight off the still. In fact, it was even, I would go so far to say it was almost hot in temperature, like a not like a boiled, not boiling hot, but like hot water hot. And it was incredible. And the other time was when some new make straight off the still at Glen Scotia in Campbelltown. That was unbelievable. Tasting Glen Scotia new make, at Campbelltown new make. It was like, wow, that is an incredible spirit. And it's like, anyway, I love those kind of things, being able to taste. And one of the points I wanted to make tonight was every opportunity you get when visiting a distillery or touring a distillery, I recommend, and I'm sure Matt does as well, getting, if you can, not every distillery offers it, by the way, but if you can, taste their new make spirit. It opens up a whole nother realm into understanding their spirit.
Yeah, and I think it's usually the smaller distilleries that are much more open to the concept, as opposed to the big ones. The big ones will shut themselves off quite a lot in order to not have people wandering into, those still areas, and that's totally understandable as well. The closest thing, I mean, if any homebrewers out there, you're going to get a concept very easily of what I'm talking about here, and that is when you're cooking your mash effectively, and the smell that comes off the barley and the wheat and the grain gives you a really clear concept of what you end up with at the other end, what's coming out of the new make. But then another attempt, if you don't have access to that and you eat wheat bix or you eat Vitabrits, whatever, any form of bix, effectively, is to just either heat some of that up in the microwave with a little bit of water for like 30 seconds, like put in one brick in there with some water, or for breakfast, have it with milk. And as it heats up, the smell as you open the microwave, that waft of the grain, the warm grain, that is as close as you're going to get without actually running the still itself. It's pretty cool.
Let's take some of the comments and questions coming through. Tim Steens asks a question from Matt Wooler. What do you teach?
Design, all different levels of design, from graphic design right up to interaction design. Can
you see the interactive design going on behind him right now? All these flashing lights.
Nano lights. Listening. Listening to me.
James Bunton says, in regards to Darren and Howie's comment, come work in the airlines a 0-day work week. And James says it's all up in the air, of course. And Dave Stucken says, just waiting for sales to take off again. Yeah, well, aren't we all, mate? As soon as they do, Mr. Stucken, I'm back over in Perth, I promise you. Sam says, I've been working on some new make samples for you, Johnny. For you with Johnny. Okay, Sam, I'm looking forward to tasting those. Thank you so much. What notes did you get off the Glen Scotia new make? Irina, I got like this absolutely, I got that farmyard characteristic, that super funky farmyard spirit. If there was a discussion very briefly last night on last night's roundtable with Mariella Romano from Arran Distillery, and there was a bit of a brief discussion on which distilleries, well, we're talking Scottish distilleries, which Scottish distilleries have really, we think, in terms of their releases and their range and their spirit quality, have really turned a corner, have it really improved. And Glen Scotia was the first one that was mentioned. It was like, well, if you tasted Glen Scotia from 10 years ago, as Wooler might attest to, like, there was some pretty rubbish stuff coming out. But I think they've really turned a corner, and their core range is a lot better these days. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but look, it's gotten a lot better. Look, it's one of those distilleries that's gotten a lot better, and I know that it's improved the spirit quality and their release quality. And I think that was exemplified in their new make from when I tasted it. It was delicious. It was even like yeasty. It was rich, very oily, very Campbelltown, very hay bales. Had all those lovely notes that you expect. Sam says
hay bales is a really good example. Yeah, hay bales.
Yeah, hay bales. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tried a few and agree, mate. Yeah, thanks, Gary. Steve Oates says I've had new make from Abandurg from Lewis. No, wait, that was their 10-year-old. Steve, I can't believe you baited me into saying that comment. Okay, you know what? You win. And Rob Akers says, I can think of one distillery tour on an island that's not Isla that has a very sterile visitor experience. I think I know which one you mean, Rob. And look, this is part of the problem is that, I mean, we could talk about experiential side of visitor centers if you like, but just focusing on new make for a second. What have you got in your glass there?
So this was the watered down Westwood sample that we got sent recently.
Yep.
And
I just do this right now. I'm just having my tea.
Oh my God, that cup.
Yeah. I don't even mean for this to be in shot. It's just my cup of tea. It's anyway.
But it's still very fresh.
Yep.
So it's probably still a month or two old now, or maybe a couple of months old. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But it still feels fresh. I've got new make samples of Lark in there, all different times. I've gone to Lark. I've filled up bottles or multiple bottles, and I try and keep them as absolutely full as possible in order to try and keep it as fresh as possible. But even then, they change. I mean, there's just that thing. You still get, regardless of maybe the flavor and the rich flavors that you get in the nose, you still end up being able to taste or realize how well new make can be made. And it's just, it's a really good starting point. Obviously, I'm not a distiller, but it's like beer. There's when you're making homebrew and the batch is going to be wrong or it's going to be good, and you have these really balanced flavors and levels of density within it. And I definitely think that the Westwood here has those elements. Apart from those hay bale sort of characteristics that it carries, it's got that lolly water sweetness. And This is another thing a lot of people that haven't had access to new make straight off a still, or high proof, not high proof, but I guess you would say barrel proof. No, not even that. That's the wrong term, because then in the US, barrel proof is still watering down to a degree.
Yeah.
Is that really good new make? You have no idea that it's 70% alcohol. You literally have no idea it's alcohol. It's like having a vodka cruiser. It's insane the ease that it can go down your throat. It's just like, how is this such high alcohol?
But being able to taste new make, I think, is quite important. As I was saying before, it's important in terms of understanding spirit development. And I'm talking real sort of nerdy end of the spectrum here. I'm talking about like actual assessment of spirit. And you learn a lot about a distillery and about their spirit character by tasting that spirit. And as you said, sometimes it's just like whiskey. You taste some whiskey that, as I've said before, you taste some whiskeys that are like 62%, and they go down like liquid silk. The balance between oak and spirit is unbelievably good. And then some whiskeys you taste at 45%, and they taste hot. And that's just an element of where the cut was taken on the spirit and the spirit and oak integration mostly. But that's spirit and oak integration,
The oak. So alcohol rots wood. Okay, so wood is effectively slowly rotting under alcohol. So you're adding wood rot. You're wanting the tannins to come through. You're also trying to isolate the tannins by putting in the charcoal filtering. But all these elements add to how that whiskey develops, and the new make could be completely different by the other end. But you can also hide poor new make through good barrel management. Like you can sort of juggle a situation in regards to what the end result should be, or what the end result is wanted to be of the distillery. So even in the case of what you might classify as like not a very delicious new make, and I've heard people in the past say that Macallan makes good new make, but every time I've had new make from Macallan, I classify it as one of the worst new makes I've had, because it's extremely assertive on the palate and extremely aggressive, but it makes the right whiskey at the other end.
Yeah.
Like they know what they're doing in regards to how they can manage that. But I guess you could say, and if you're saying Dan's tuned in, sorry, I can't see the feed that's happening at the moment. But I'm sure Dan can attest to choosing the right new make right from the start, if possible, and meaning probably less barrel management at the other end. Like you're going to be able to nurture it in a much easier way, as opposed to going, oh, okay, we need to really bang the hell out of this in order to get it in the right place. I've only ever gone to the point of making beer, so I've never made spirit. So I can only guess in those senses.
Yeah. There's actually a comment here from Darren Howie, of which Matt will all be familiar with this one. If you ever visit Yamazaki and Hakushu, they offer new make flights at the bars. Wonderful to try and see the journey it takes into the casks. That's true. So some distilleries around the world do offer new make sampling flights as well, like peated, unpeated, new make, etc.
Yep. Hakushu is a better experience than Yamazaki, I wager, in the experiences I've had. I don't know whether it's because Hakushu is less visited than Yamazaki, but they offer everything and anything.
Yeah.
Take cash. They don't take credit card at the bar. It's all cash.
Although in post-COVID world, maybe it's all credit card. You know, everything's changing so quickly, so we'll see.
Who knows? But I believe in the town, in the prefecture, in the township, there was only one cab that actually took a credit card as payment. So I had certain negotiations I had to make in order to ensure that I could spend my time liberally at the bar afterwards, in order to just try all those things in regards to the multiple stills that they have, the multiple new makes they had, and then of course all the other whiskeys that followed on after that. But new make is a window into a distillery, absolutely. And if you can ever get that opportunity, I find it a little bit sad sometimes that we don't see as much new make being brought out to Australia, just even for tasting profiles.
It's a tricky one, but yeah, it's
yeah. But then, as I said, the worst new make, as I classify, I've ever had has been from Macallan, and so you can sort of see why maybe it's not always the right thing to do. But it's a funny thing, but it makes exciting times to go to a distillery, knowing that you've got an opportunity to try a new make. It's almost like, let's leave it for then, because it's going to make my memory a lot more sort of enriched. For the distillery.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob Akers asks, do you have to fax your booking to Hakushu? Yes, very funny. Okay, so Irina says Glenfarclas changed their yeast strain a couple of years ago. Apparently their new make got more pineapple-y and lots more tropical. Will be interesting to see what comes out in a couple of years' time. Irina, they also changed one of their major wash stills about 2 years ago as well. So we're probably going to see some of the big changes. I mean, but at the same time, you've got to remember these distilleries spend an awful amount of time, research and development in ensuring continuity of profile.
Yeah.
So there's probably a good case to be made that the new yeast strain is closer to what it should have been earlier, rather than changing it completely. It probably got a little bit more tropical to begin with, but they're probably going to try and not iron it out so much, but just find a way to maintain that profile. It's all about continuity and consistency rather than, hey, this is new Glenfarclas profile. But yeah, you might see some change. And Sam says that was a good point. I noticed a difference in drinking new make spirit straight off the still during winter, or coming off. It was coming off much warmer in summer, and there was zero alcohol burn. It's Sam. It's something, isn't it? It's like the environment and place of which you taste it imparts on what you think on the flavor of that spirit.
Totally. The experience is part of that. It's in
the temperature, though.
Environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, temperature. I mean, even from the case of those the barbecue, whether it be actual like smoking barbecue or whether you barbecue, you know that running the barbecue in winter versus running it in the summer, the maintaining of that temperature, things are going to cool down a lot quicker in winter than what they are in summer. And if you're going through in summer, even though it might be coming off the still at exactly the same temperature because it has to, that's the way they're planning it, it needs to, the temperature is going to maintain itself for a much longer period once it comes off the still. So yeah, your experience in that is certainly going to be different as well. You just got to take that into account more than anything else.
Rob Akers asks, would you taste a low wine sample? No, I wouldn't. And I've had the opportunity before, but it smells horrible, and it's probably quite detrimental to your health. It's basically toxic. It's basically just straight methanols. No, it's not. Sorry, I don't want to get chastised by the distillers on that one. But it's very methanolic, and it will and very butyric usually. So it's got quite it's not desirable to try. I'm not sure that I would.
Sorry, you broke up there. Which bit was that? Which one? Which the tips or the tails? Where are we talking?
No, the low ones. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can drink them. I wouldn't drink a lot of them. You'd taste it. Most of it
you
just
can taste
tastes
its
like
bit, probably. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's like licking a piece of copper, effectively. That's the sort of profile you get off it, and it taints your tongue, it taints your palate. I do it all the time, but only do it to actually experience what the hell is going on. But you're not drinking it.
You heard it here
necessarily.
first, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Waller drinks low wines all the time. Which
Anytime I'm at an experience of that,
it explains a lot about him, actually. It explains a lot about him.
Whatever.
And Scott Fitzsimons asks, how's the Hackshu mineral water tour?
The what? The Hackshu
Exactly.
mineral water?
The Hackshu mineral water tour.
I have never had that. Is that when you fall in the creek on the way up?
So there's also
I think that might be it.
No, you just got trolled by Scott. I think we both did. It's fine. Tim Steens says, warm new make. Any benefits to drinking warm whiskey? Now, it's funny you ask that, Tim. Try this one when you're really enjoying a whiskey and you've got it in a glass and it's in room temperature. Try this one. This is just cup the glass like this in your hand and warm that right up as much as you can just with your hands. And you'll find a lot more of the volatiles, a lot more of the flavor actually starts jumping out of the glass. It changes it. It warms it up slightly and it starts getting a bit more vapory and lovely. And it's so warm whiskey is such as like warmed up. I wouldn't do that. There's even some temperatures are too much for whiskey, but warming it up in your hand, nosing at the difference between not warmed up and then warmed up, just hand temperature, changes the spirit a lot. What do you think?
Me?
Yeah,
definitely. Of course it does. Whether it changes for the better or worse is a completely different story. And it's like taking, and I've done it many a time with mucking around with spirits, and I'll go and stick the bottle or I'll stick the glass. I'll put the glass and cap it and then go stick it in the fridge and chill it. I won't actually freeze it or I won't put ice in it or anything like that, but I will chill it and I'll see what goes on. And what goes on is loses flavor. It loses character. But warming something to a degree helps, but only to a point. And then it just gets too warm. And once you warm it too much, forget it. You can't taste it again. Whiskey is engineered to be drunk at room temperature, but they don't know everything. And so accidents can happen, and discovering those accidents, you should muck around with this stuff and see what goes on. There's no reason. I mean, it's like society, and Andrew is when Andrew's running his sessions, he always usually dares people and wants people to add some water to their society whiskeys, but we'll want to see what people will often get out of it, but often won't do it himself type of deal. It's a bit of an experiment, and most of the time, as an improvement on flavor, I normally find it actually isn't improving flavor. It might change the whiskey, but does it improve the flavor? It's a difficult thing, and I think it's very subjective. That's where it falls into subjective. Do you like your steak well done, medium, rare? That's up to you. And different flavors, it's like beef, and when I'm cooking and everything, raw meat, I always eat the raw meat before I cook it because I want to know what the quality is like, and you can gauge that by the level of sweetness that the meat actually gives you in a raw sense. There's all different ways of approaching it. There's none are necessarily wrong, and it's not cool when people tell you that no, you can't do it or you shouldn't do it.
I don't like any of that stuff either.
Yeah, certainly muck around with it, see what the hell happens. Warm it up. Cognac works very well, I think, warmed up to a degree.
It does.
But cognac also, it's similar to whiskey. It goes through the same processes, but grapes react differently. And in a lot of ways, cognac actually offers, or brandy offers some really interesting textures as the grape, or as the grape spirit gets warmer. So. Hence brandy balloon.
Huge fan of that method of just even warming it in your hands. I tried on a lot of, like, I often do that a bit like Andrew. I often do that if I'm really enjoying it and I want to see where else it can go. But at the same time, I'll agree with Waller. Like, if you do this to an Armagnac or a cognac or a brandy, you get that changes things entirely. It's a very, very different spirit in their case. There's probably some organoleptical reason for that, but we won't go into that right now. Scotty says he's off. See you all at Rover. Yeah, sure.
Oh my God, Scotty.
Scotty, of course, mate. Of course. We're not going to see. There's no after hours tonight, Scott. What the hell?
I've learnt to stay out of those after hours.
Yeah, they're a bit mental, aren't they? Bit of fun. Miranda Marie, good to see you, Miranda. I hope you're well, and I hope you're rock and roll over there. It's been too long already since we last saw each other. Caleb, good to see you, mate. And Rob Akers says, tasting a dram on a 40-degree day in the old Essendon Starwood distillery was very different. Yeah, I'll attest to that. In fact, the very first time
aviation gas.
Yeah, it's the very first time I visited Starwood when they were in Essendon. It was middle of winter in Melbourne, and it was fine. It was a nice experience. But the second time I visited them was in middle of summer, and it was hellish. Truly hellish in there, and it was. I think that was the same day I helped install a TV on the wall or something. I got drafted. I started working that day.
I've seen those photos.
Yeah. Steve Oates asks a few drops of new make spirit in your Earl Grey, Bailey. Steve, you know me all too well. I am an Earl Grey fan. I do like a heavily steeped Earl Grey. And
that's made me think, because even from a cocktail making point of view, but more so not cocktail, but just simply adding new make to whiskey. I don't know whether that actually helps. So not helps, but what would it produce? So if you had like a new make from a Ardbeg and then also an Ardbeg 10 and then adding new make to it, I'd be really keen to see what happens. Maybe nothing happens. It just becomes more alcoholic. But I'd be really curious to see as to whether any elements really blow out in the in the combination of the new make versus the tannic whiskey, effectively.
At a dinner last year, which was hosted by Franz Schurer for SMWS, the welcome cocktail. It wasn't strictly speaking a cocktail because it only had 2 ingredients, but the welcome cocktail was a glass of it was in a champagne flute, and it was 30 mils of Ardbeg new make, and I think 20 mils of yuzu, which was an apple liqueur.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
And so it was a green apple liqueur with Ardbeg new make, and it's just mix those two together. And I think it was about those ratios. I'd have to check in, but it was unbelievable. It was like, how does that work so well? And even just in a simplistic form like that, it was an amazing flavor. Well,
I think there's a few people that maybe are chiming in they'll remember, but there was that accident that happened one time where myself and Mitch were mixing plantation pineapple with the
Stiggins.
The Stiggins with the Teeling small batch, and making developing effectively an old fashioned for a tasting that I had coming up, using both those whiskeys in there. So we thought we'd make a cocktail, and an equal balance of the two of those things ended up producing this ridiculous level of coconut just exploded from the glass. So here's pineapple flavored thing. Here is a whiskey that offers all these elements of coffee and dark chocolate, and then having is it a coincidence? Who knows? But the additional maturation in Nicaraguan rum casks, which are quite common to have coconut flavors, happen to be coming out of this glass in pungent levels. And like, what is going on? Just a mistake or an experiment has produced this amazing flavored spirit, is what you could only call it, because it was rum and whiskey mixed together. So who knows? It could be match made in heaven. It's like I was saying to you the other night.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I was going to say that pink rummy cocktail I made earlier was whiskey, rum, grenadine, sugar, and bitters, and it actually worked really well. It's just a sweet pink rum kind of cocktail, and the whiskey amps it up, and the rum amps it up. They actually work really well together.
Well, like we were talking earlier, and as you know, quite often I'll call bullshit on most people's what would you call it, pairings.
Right.
Because like there's nostalgia and there's feeling and there's emotion that goes into that. But as far as flavors happen in one's mouth, quite often it's not a very good experience, or it's a wanting of an experience. And the accident that happened last night for me, and chocolate's one of those ones that it's a neutralizer quite often to a palate. But remember a couple of weeks ago we did the Colila
Yeah, we did
tasting
the
along
taste
with
off.
the
Yeah,
society. So I was having a bit of that last night, and my wife rocks up with a packet of Tim Tams, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be an absolute disaster. I have been drinking Colila. I've got all this peat. This is not going to happen. This is not going to work. But nonetheless, it's the original Tim Tam. I can't resist. And let's not get into an argument about this dark versus
double
original.
coat's just
No,
better.
don't start.
Double
Don't
coat's
start.
just
No,
better.
don't start.
It's just a better Tim Tam.
No, it's not. Anyway, you're wrong. I'm right. And
it's okay to be wrong sometimes. Look, I've known you be wrong before. It's okay. Hold on. Before we talk about Tim Tams, Tim Steen says, I wonder about the benefits of tasting something at room temperature that becomes body temperature in your mouth. There's got to be some science behind that, which Tim, you're going to have to dig into that one a bit more. And
yeah, absolutely.
Tasting the Dunnages in the height of winter meant warming every dram by your hands. Full flavor.
I think the reality is if you start snorting whiskey, you're probably going to bypass the temperature, and the olfactory is going to pick up, because most of it's all in your olfactories. It's going to pick it up instantly at, the chemical change that happens and connects to the brain is amazing how fast that works. So that's probably the only way you're going to be able to bypass the the body temperature as it's in the mouth and go straight to that. So start snorting it and tell us what it's going to be like. That's what I want. On camera, recorded.
We've got some consensus, however, in the chat thread about the best Tim Tams. In order, it goes double coat, then dark, then normal. I'm afraid that's the. I'm
happy to listen to criticism, but I can't help it if you're wrong. Like, that's just. Anyway, the thing is, these things for me, and I was shouting into the microphone then. These things and me for the Colila 12-year-old work so well, and I think it's a lot to do with the biscuit that's inside more so than the chocolate. That and it just tasted amazing, just amazing. And of course, in the morning, empty glass next to the bed, and knows it. That's a great way to find out what else is going on in a whiskey, is to actually just let it dry out in the glass for like 8 hours and then go and smell it. And it was all like smoky peanuts. Such a nice flavor, smoky peanuts. I mean, bring it on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I did it live on that a couple of months back about smelling the glass the morning after. Leave a glass with just a smidge left in the bottom of it, or even just an empty glass, smelling the empty glass the morning after. And try it for whiskey, try it for rum, and try it for new make. So try it with a few different things and see what the flavors that you pick up are going to be different because of the extreme oxidization. But it's also going to be different because your senses are much more heightened at that time of morning than they are in the evening. Rob Akers asks, what works best with BBQ Shapes?
BBQ Shapes. Well, look, I would have to say bourbon. I'm going to say bourbon because bourbon will deal with that. But who knows? I don't know.
Why don't we do a Shapes taste off? Why don't we do a Shapes tasting?
Damn straight you should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shapes in single casks.
Man,
that's not the worst idea.
That might even cut like $5 off the cost on a society tasting, because like the food cost is going to be so much cheaper.
Food cost is lower. We'll be fine.
Everyone just gets one of those $5 20-pack of Shapes, and they can just pick their combo the whole way through.
We'll have those little school box, the lunchbox shaped.
And the whole tasting is just going to be hearing this noise constantly. But, yes.
There we go. Look, great ideas are born out of these live sessions. Rob Akers remembers the bread and whiskey night. That was so good. That was the most undersold, but most I say undersold is like it was just sort of like, hey, we're going to drink whiskey and eat bread. And then when you turned up, it was so much.
I would be down for that. I wasn't available for that. But what that made me think immediately when it came to that sort of tasting concept was, in fact, the butter that goes with it.
Oh, yeah, there was all sorts of stuff going on there. That was amazing. Yeah.
Types of butter. The salt and the butter and things.
Yeah. Well, before we end up making noises at each other all night, like two apes on a live stream, I want to thank Wooler again for being part of the nightly live, and we're having a chat about New Make and taking some of your comments and questions. And you know what? If you missed out on the beginning of this, I'm going to mention again, if you're a member and you refer a member, or if you join the society between now and the end of July, so you've got a bit of time, you've got 5-ish weeks, 6 weeks, you go in the chance to draw a chance that you might win a bottle. The 64.97, which was a Partner Bar exclusive. I found one in the warehouse and I want to give it away to someone. So until next time, Slanjava, thank you so much. Cheers to your good health, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you for the tomorrow night, which is the Friday members drinks on Zoom, which we always love doing. It's going to be a big bash. We're going to start fractionally later than last time. We're going to start at 7:30 instead of 7. Maybe give people a bit more time to get in there. But we'll start at 7:30 tomorrow night, and it will post up the Zoom link into our Facebook group. We won't put it on the page. We just put it on the group. And if you want to join in, I'd love you to be there. And thanks again, Matt Waller. Thank you.
Everyone bring snacks this time. Most people aren't organized. Snacks.
Yeah, snacks.
Or bring your favorite meat pie or something. Let's have like a pie off.
A pie.
Pie.
We can talk pies. Exactly.
Pies and whiskey. Yes.
See you tomorrow, Darren. Thank you so much. See you all. Rob, Steve, everyone who's tuned in. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Wacky, wavy, inflatable tube guy.